Welcome to the All-Star Supercast. I'm Haz from Valkyrie Rock. This is Jay from Jay Construction, and
Hi.
Joy's currently moving his cardboard box from behind Tesco.
Yeah, you know, it's...
Other supermarkets are available, of course.
Yeah, well, he got moved from Morrison's quite a while ago, so, you know. But it's raining at the moment, so his cardboard box might be getting a bit wet.
Yeah.
I think he might have to move up to some of those, the pallets that they have out the back. Yeah, he might have to make a shelter out of that.
Get himself into an M&S box, higher quality.
Anywho,
We're here to talk about Dredd and Judge Dredd.
round table discussion.
Round table.
I'm covered in dog
comparison.
hairs.
You don't even own a dog.
No, you do.
I do. He's cute.
He is cute, but he's fucking hairy. Jesus. Okay, so
So we're doing a comparison between Dredd and Judge Dredd. Just a more casual, laid-back discussion. Just the two of us, obviously.
we can make it if we try.
We're not having another musical one.
You and I.
I edited out so much Drowning Pool from the last one. So I left some in just for you, but I edited so much out.
I should edit it into like an actual song for the YouTube channel.
Between that and Trump, each one's had its own theme, I think.
Yeah, Trump was in number one.
It's what's been on your mind at the time. So comparisons on Judge Dredd.
Yeah, I mean, there is no comparison.
I mean, they
really.
are not like night and day.
Yeah, let's focus on what's the same about them. So, first of all, they revolve around the main character of Judge Dredd.
No.
Okay, no, because the second one revolves around Anderson.
Yeah, we kind of almost all agreed to that. It was almost an Anderson film with Dredd in.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah,
Judge Dredd's in both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, different versions of the same character. He's in both of them. They both take place in Mega City 1, however the first one goes out into the Cursed Earth. And the second one pretty much just stays in one area, more or less all the film. One is done over a few days. The story takes place over a few days. The second one, it's a one-day story.
Yeah.
Kind of like Superbad, only with a lot of violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if Superbad had...
It was completely different, but still took place over one day. That would be Dredd.
Yeah.
Mega City ones themselves are quite different.
Massively different. I mean, in the first film especially, it was very built up, all skyscraper, whereas in the second one...
Very Blade Runner.
Yeah, and flying vehicles.
Yes.
And in the second one...
It looked like a war zone. In many ways.
Yeah, it was almost like it was still building to what the first film had.
Yeah.
It almost seemed a bit early days for it.
Yeah, in many ways.
But yeah, like you did have those towering structures.
Yeah, you
but
still had the mega blocks, you still had the mega highways.
But they were made to stand out a lot more, and I thought that worked better.
Everything was from the ground as well.
Yeah.
So of course you got that pan and shot with the drone going over. But that was the only flying vehicle there. Yeah,
there were only drones out there, and that was it.
The judges operated on the ground, normal motorbikes.
You didn't have a fucking judges building that looked like an eagle in the second film?
No, looks cool as fuck. I thought the one in
the
second one.
I rewatched first Judge Dredd, and I
didn't know you were. You love punishment.
I still like it. I don't know why. I think I like it in spite of it being a Dredd film. It's such a bad film, but I have such a bad taste in movies.
You ever tried the Still have the mega blocks, still have the mega highways. The Hall of Justice completely different.
Yeah.
No, it's just everything looked really glitzy in the first one.
Everything was shiny.
Yeah.
It was very... I think you touched on it in the podcast. It was reminiscent of... I forget his name.
Rob Liefeld.
That's it.
Yeah.
And he said it was very perfect. Yeah. Everything was quite perfect in it.
If you get a chance, go on YouTube and look up the worst drawings of Rob Liefeld. Oh my word.
Is it that bad?
He is that bad. Just body proportions that don't make sense. Like having legs as high as a building and then just a little body on top. It's fucking ridiculous.
It's incredible how like all the judges are pretty big. Even all the vehicles are quite substantial vehicles. Like you had one car in the whole thing which wasn't.
Yeah.
The bikes are quite brutal compared to the newer film.
Yeah. It's a difference between one being over the top and one being really grounded.
It was the first film was very over the top sci-fi, everything's bigger in the future.
Yeah.
Whereas the second film was, how would it be practical? How would you actually use it? How would you ride a bike like that?
Yeah.
How would you have the armour? Yeah, it was incredible to see the difference in vision between the two.
The Dredd itself is more dystopian as well, I'd say, whereas the Judge Dredd just seemed kind of sci-fi.
I mean, the problem with
cookie cutter sci-fi.
Yeah, the problem with the 95 film was very much it didn't show the world off particularly.
No.
It showed you glimpses of it and that dystopian future, but after the start, it didn't have that grit.
No. I mean, they did talk about a few things that come up in it, like block wars.
Yeah, I mean, the block war bit was really good because that actually introduced the populace and how downtrodden, and I had had the outside of scenes, and you had some street shots which were really good, like when they were going to the pawn shop and just generally on the street, you saw how busy it was. Whereas
All's fair in love and block wars.
I'm sure that must have been the name of one comic.
It's got to have been. It's got to have been.
If not, get on it.
Yeah, well, that's me.
We'll take our money and we'll make more Dredd podcasts with it. It'll be great.
Yeah, we'll just come up with stories for you.
Just make another film.
Yeah.
Or a TV show. We'll settle.
Well, yeah, fine.
Cartoon.
Yeah, cartoon. Radio show, if that's still a thing. You know, we'll have that.
Yeah, rock opera.
Rock.
Warm World style.
A Judge Dredd rock opera. Oh my god. That would be... Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yes. Let's start writing that right away.
His name is Dredd. He's more than a man.
He is the law. He is the law. He is the law. Oh yeah. Actually, we could just use because Anthrax did a full Judge Dredd album.
I know they had a song particularly based on it.
The full album was.
Was it?
Yeah.
I thought it was just one song, but yeah.
So we'll do that. we'll just steal all that and then make a rock opera out of it.
A rock opera, yes.
We'll do it.
We'll draw it. We'll act it. We'll sing it. We'll write
the theme tune.
But yeah, there was the first one only had glimpses of that dystopian, whereas the second one it really had that downtrodden feel to it all throughout. Really, like even when they were just going down the highway at the start, there was like rubbish at the side, graffiti everywhere. And it did a much better job, like telling you from the start, there's too much wrong in this city.
Yeah,
and then it just took that and ran with it.
They didn't have these caricature of villains either.
No, everyone had a reason to be evil, or there wasn't anyone inherently evil. It was all learned behaviour because it was just rough as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, if you look in the first one, because in both of them, our first meeting of Dredd involves him taking down a group of criminals.
Yeah.
In the first one, he takes down some guys in a block war.
Yeah, he doesn't just take down a group of it, he just emasculates two judges completely first.
Yeah.
But yeah.
By showing how useless they are.
Yeah, and that was the other thing as well, I suppose, was in the first one...
He's the only competent judge.
Yeah, he just emasculates like almost every judge he meets. He just has to be above them.
Yeah.
Whereas in the second one, he very much was part of a team. He was just part of the system.
He wasn't this legend.
No.
Because in the first one, they're always talking about like the guy who with the car.
Yeah.
And he looks at his badge and says, Dredd! And he's like instantly taken aback by it. Everyone knows Judge Dredd.
I mean, in the comics it gets to that, but it got to that after 5 or 10 years of the comics where all these big events had happened, so the people would know who he was.
Yeah. Before then he was just a judge.
Yeah.
Just another judge.
He's just part of the system. And
whereas in Dredd, he's known amongst the judges, which we see at the end.
Yeah.
That they know how dangerous he is and how big of a deal he is. But none of the criminals there really know of him.
But then, like you said, only 6% of crimes are seen to.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So the judges almost become, not a myth, but they're so infrequent.
Yeah.
When they come through, you know about it.
They don't have the whole "oh, Judge Dredd is coming to get you" sort of thing.
No, it's a bit more of a boogeyman.
Yeah.
But the system overall is. I think that's a big difference in how it plays it off. One very much felt justice system was overwhelmed, and then the other one it was almost held up to a standard.
Yeah.
Like they were like, oh, the judges are brilliant in the first one, and the second one was like, no, we're a necessary evil.
Essentially, yeah. And that comes across in the way that they are presented. In the sequel, well, it's not a sequel, why am I calling it a sequel? In the reboot, it gets across this authoritarian, fascist side to them.
Yeah.
The only time I was watching this video about The Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller comic, and in that it posed the question, is Batman a fascist in that series? And the narrator noted that the only time that you can have fascist protagonist is when the world that it's set in
is so broken
that is the only option.
Yeah.
And I think they get that across really well in the sequel.
It brings the order to the chaos through any means.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, you really do feel that in the second film, but not in the first.
In the first one, it just seems like this is a utopia in many ways. That's how it seems.
Yeah.
They've built this incredible place that does have the occasional bit of crime.
I mean, another similarity between the two, though, was corruption within the system.
Yes.
I mean, they both had corrupt judges, which was something that I hadn't
It's a trope of that, though, within any sort of
any police film has that. Yeah. It was nice to see both of them dealt with, even though they have this police state. It's not a perfect world for it.
It's very different types of corruption within it as well.
Yeah.
In Judge Dredd, you've got the conspiracy of corruption from the top. And whereas in Dredd you've got conspiracy amongst the workers of that.
Well, it's interesting because in the first one it does allude to the conspiracy going from the bottom to the top. With what the reporter says, he's like, it goes much deeper than we first thought. It's not just the street judges, but goes up to the top.
Yeah.
But it never builds on that base level.
Yeah. You never find out who are these judges that are corrupt in the first one, which I think was missing a bit of a trick. Could have made it a bit more interesting. Whereas, thing is, in the Judge Dredd universe, why would they need corruption at the top? Because they've set up this authoritarian state. They are the government in this.
Did it mention the council in the second one? I can't remember.
No, you had the chief judge, but that was it.
I know in the comics they kind of have the council, and for a bit they don't, and then they do, and then they don't. And it's never made clear if they do or not, because if they do, that was always how it was meant to be kept fair. You had your chief judge, but you had like a council kind of almost on equal power. The chief judge had the power vote on it, but they were like the conscience. And in the first one, it tries to establish that it's quite a fair system, that, and it's obviously you see the corruption seep through it.
They talk about in the first one. They talk about things like freedom and democracy, and it's like, you don't have that in Judge Dredd. Democracy is something that the people have to fight for in Judge Dredd.
They say it's the land of the free. They do in the comics. They say there's freedom, but there's a price for it.
You have the freedom to work, or you have the freedom to starve.
Yeah, the comic really does put that across properly. I mean, the America storyline in the comic really draws that home.
I'm really loving that, by the way.
It's really good, isn't it?
I'm reading that, and I'm trying to read the rest of Halo Jones, like, alongside each other. And both of them, to be fair. Halo Jones recently, one that I read it, absolutely. I finished reading it, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ.
It's a killer that it was never finished.
Yeah, I was like, whew.
It's interesting that like different writers pick up on the same thing and put it into Dredd.
Yeah.
So seeing the films both tackle the same issue, but from such different ways.
From a Hollywood standpoint, and really, the Dredd is made almost like an independent film. It's almost pretty much...
It almost feels like a novel.
Yeah, I guess.
That's been made into a film. And that very much has to do with the writer. I mean, he's a novelist. The things he creates always seem to be more than just a film, or more than just a book. Then they leave questions a bit afterwards. They leave you wanting more anyway.
Yeah.
So it's nice that the second film did that and had Dredd in it.
Yeah.
Because it just worked so well. I mean, everything just came together for it, spot on. I think you could tell as well there was the harmony behind the second film, where there were so much behind the scenes rumblings in the first one that really did transfer through to the film itself. Yeah. And how it really was like two different films squashed together.
Yeah. So first one's your standard action vehicle. Whereas
action with misstepped comedy and misstepped seriousness in it. That just didn't gel.
And the second one is pretty much like a proper work of fiction.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's go on to the females of the films, because that is
amazingly different.
Yes, yeah.
And I almost want to comment on, is that also just how far the world's come in that time for viewing women?
I think it is.
Or particularly Hollywood and that style.
I mean, if you think back to the 90s, other than Sarah Connor, I can't think of many films that showed that women can be tough and can stand on an equal footing to the men.
There were some, but they were infrequent.
Yeah, they were very infrequent.
Whereas now there's lots of more powerful female role models in film, but not just film, TV, and so on.
I mean, now you've got, like, The Hunger Games is huge, because you've got, like, Katniss from that, haven't you? there's just so many.
That's even in comics.
Comics, yeah. Wonder Woman's huge. Squirrel Girl. Have you heard of Squirrel Girl?
Squirrel Girl, unbeatable.
The unbeatable Squirrel Girl.
Yeah. Coming to TV soon.
This goes to show how far the character of Anderson was ahead of her time, because when she came out, I think it was in the 80s run, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the 80s run.
Hershey was in the 80s as well, though.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, this is the problem of it wouldn't matter which one of those two was picked for the 95 film. It was always just going to be as a side piece to Stallone's character.
Yeah.
And that was always the issue. Because Hershey, in the comics, really strong female character. Chief Judge twice.
Yeah.
Like, really strong. And in the film, no.
She has bits where she shows that she is competent in the film. Like, she becomes his attorney for his trial and stuff like that. But she's instantly shot down on virtually everything, which we went into in detail in the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was such a waste.
And she doesn't grow as a character either.
No.
She is pretty much the same throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
She just knows a few more things, but she doesn't. Whereas if you look at Anderson, her progression through one day in story terms is incredible. Because she goes from being this quite meek, quite not very confident cadet.
Just a very green rookie.
Very green rookie, yeah. Not very confident in what she's doing. To this person who knows that she's there for justice, not specifically the law, which we see when she lets the clan techie go.
Yeah.
And she's also incredibly competent in the battle. You know, she takes out Kay, she takes out the female judge, the corrupt one, and then she helps Dredd.
I mean, she passes judgments.
Some of them really tough. When she had to kill that guy, that really you could see that taking a toll.
She had to execute someone almost in cold blood, not in cold blood, but it's as good as.
Yeah, yeah.
And she does it because she's told to by Dredd. She follows the order.
Yeah, and I think the actress Olivia Thirlby really gets that across.
Yeah.
Like, really gets the pain that the mental torture she's going through from having to execute this perp and then having to meet his wife later.
Yeah, I mean, that was a brilliant storyline in itself. That just provided so much growth.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, you throw in the psychic abilities when her and Kay are essentially battling, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, you see that strength come through there if she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And that's something that it's fantastic to see, because I was going to say if kids see this, but if an 18-year-old girl watched it,
an 18-year-old unconfident girl sees that,
and again, talking about women, the main baddie being a female in the second film,
and an incredible villain as well.
And there was a female villain, of course, in the first film, but again, she was a side piece to the main character.
Didn't even really get named, did she? Doctor.
I want to say Cho, but that just sounds racist. It might have been Chen.
Dr. Kim Jong-un.
Yes, that was Dr. Kim.
Dr. Kim, yeah.
I can't put that in. But she was there as the scientist, but also the love interest, but not.
That was only hinted at, though, wasn't it?
And it was just, it was such an afterthought of, we need to have Dredd's got a woman, so we need to give Rico. And whereas in the second one, she was so badass.
Oh yeah.
That was part of what made the film work.
Yeah. And she was surrounded by a harem of blokes who were just shit scared of her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that spoke to the authority of a female character as well.
And I mean, the way it's acted as well, it's so dominating.
I saw a little thing, apparently Mama was meant to be an obese character.
I heard it was also meant to be a lot older woman.
Yeah.
Like a grandma almost.
Yeah. But when Lena Headey went for the audition, she just blew them away, so they changed their vision of the character.
You can really tell that character was made for her.
Yeah.
With how it was acted, and she plays Cersei, Game of Thrones. There's a lot of similarity there.
Yeah.
In that cold, calculating nature.
Yeah.
But they're so different as well.
Mm-hmm. So Cersei has to fight from the beginning to get the power. She really craves the power, whereas we see Mama, who already now has that power.
Yeah, and it was nice seeing the backstory of she was just trying to get by, trying to make some money.
And also Cersei is occasionally a victim.
Yeah.
As well. The Mama's never a victim. She was originally.
She was a victim that basically said, I will never be a victim again. And she really meant it.
Yeah. She went a bit... Yeah.
And it's such a powerful character. And just everything about it.
Considering it was created for the film as well.
I mean, what was nice in the second one was everyone had their own almost quotable lines.
Yeah.
They all had their own identities. There was no one where you were confused between two characters, particularly.
Not a lot of villains that are created for superhero films are as good as Mama was. I mean, if I'm thinking off the top of my head, you've got Max Schreck from Batman Returns, which we'll get to later, and a later date. But there's a few, but they're just...
There's not loads and loads.
Not a massive amount, no. But the ones that there have been haven't been as well received as Mama was.
I mean, I suppose the nice thing as well is most villains need that background, that in-depth background that comes from years of being in comics.
Yeah.
And Mama,
especially now.
And Mama felt like she had that already.
Yeah, and
like,
these days you can't take liberties with the source material as much as you could.
I think the whole
before.
film, the second film had that all the way through. It was very obvious you were only there for that day.
Yeah.
And a lot had happened before, a lot had happened after, and you didn't need to know everything before, and you want to know everything after. But the film was very much a snapshot in the day of one person.
Yes.
Or two people.
Yeah.
But I thought that was brilliant, and even then, like when you get the explanation in it, it wasn't in your face particularly. It was almost the characters either needed to know it. It was so minimal exposition, or it was training for Anderson. Whereas in the first film, it was all very in your face.
It was over the top, and it was good for what it was. You know, it was a fine film. If
like I say, you take the comic book out of the film, it was a typical 90s action film.
If it was on ITV at 5 o'clock one Saturday night, and I didn't have any other plans, I'd probably watch it again.
Like I kind of saw it when I was quite young, so it was one of the first comic book movies I saw, and I really enjoyed it as a film, and it's probably why I like it now. I've got that nostalgia for it, but even then, watching it, it's what I would term the 90s action film. It's a good example, but as a comic book movie, it fails completely.
Yeah, it's. But again, that's a product of when it came out. You know, the way comic book films are now has only been in place since pretty much since X-Men came out in 2000, and that really kick-started it, because that didn't take too many liberties with the source material. It still took a few, because you've got to in film if you want to transfer something from page to screen.
Yeah,
you've got to take a few
definitely
liberties.
In the last decade, from like Iron Man coming out.
Yes,
that kind of X-Men changed the game somewhat, but after X-Men, I think you had like Fantastic Four. You had a few real duds in there, and then you got Marvel with their MCU.
I mean, Spider-Man the first Spider-Man film was pretty.
The second one was good.
The second one was great.
But
Jesus, the second one's
then
so
the third
good.
one on its face.
Yeah,
then you had like the MCU, which raised that bar so high for comic book movies that even now I think they're struggling to hit those heights. There's only a few. I mean, Dark Knight, that's up there.
Well, the one thing the Batman films, the Christopher Nolan Batman films, is that they did take quite a lot of liberties, but the vision was so good in it that it was okay, and it meant it was
one of the
fine.
big things I think is consistency. If you're going to change something, really go for it. Make it your own.
Don't half-ass it, full-ass it.
No, and that's the problem that the first Dredd one has, is it took those liberties, but it didn't want to fully commit to those, so it's kept trying to drag back as well.
Yeah.
And it very much was a film caught between two places, and that's why it didn't gel.
Yeah. So look at the satire element, because Dredd, of course, is a satirical comic.
Yep, it's
and
very political satire as well.
How do you think that came across in both films?
Second one dealt with it amazingly. First one, again, quite blunt nose, and if anything, was quite absent for a lot of it. I mean, in the first one, you got moments of satire.
You got certain allusions,
but it just didn't fit with the rest of the film. So when it happened, it was kind of almost out of nowhere, in your face, and then gone, and you're kind of going, I didn't mind that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Joe mentioned that in the opening scenes where it's the block war, that it reminded him a lot of class warfare. So we managed to get that across initially, and then that's where it sort of tailed off into whatever it is.
Generic film.
Yeah. I mean, who's it? It was Neil Gaiman, I was watching an interview with him talking about 2000 AD, and he described 2000 AD as being created by a bunch of working class anarchists.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah.
The characters come out of that 80s, a lot of them anyway, come out of that 80s strife that Britain was going through. I mean, there were massive upheaval and big changes.
Pat Mills is a big proponent of that.
Yeah.
He's always talking about the working class hero.
I mean, it would be amazing to see, even now, like kind of in these next few years, we're going to see a lot of good political satire comics coming out of Britain again, because we've got that same kind of ingredients.
Yeah.
And I think that ingredients makes really relatable heroes.
It makes relatable heroes, and it also makes great stories.
And this time, those people creating them now have that inspiration from the 80s.
Yeah.
That next wave's coming through, but the 80s are almost like the old masters at this point of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the second film gets it across because
John
Wagner was involved.
Yeah, I think we're a lot more blunt these days about these changes, whereas in the 80s, a lot of the satire was more tongue-in-cheek.
Not just that, we changed how we consume media, so whereas in the 80s a comic would work, it probably wouldn't now, but something online works now.
Yeah.
So that whole delivery's changed, but our attention spans are a lot shorter. So whereas before you could get away with giving 5 pages of Judge Dredd to a kid, they're not going to concentrate on that possibly now.
Yeah.
And I think the first film suffers from that almost attention deficit to the story, as the second film, with its satire, it's in your face all the time. The whole setting's designed to continually remind you of that whole political background to it, that whole class war. Because, I mean, they say she lives in the penthouse. That's a term very much describing the rich.
Yes. Even though it's still in a block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you're at the top of a pile of shit. Well done.
Yeah. In terms of the costumes between the two films,
chalk and cheese. I mean, we touched on it earlier. One's practicality, one's just show.
I'm bigger for practicality myself. I think it worked incredible. It was kind of like the difference between the Dark Knight costume, and the
bat nipples.
And the bat nipples. Yeah, essentially that was it. It was actually quite campy, the original, in a way.
You know what? I actually liked the shoulder pads bit. I liked it from kind of the chest up, but
you didn't like the codpiece then?
Codpiece.
Oh, Jesus. But doesn't wear it the rest of the film either. No. What was the point of it even being there? Was it just cold outside and you didn't want anyone to see?
Yes.
But to be fair, it was filmed in London, wasn't it?
It was.
So maybe it was a bit nippy that day.
I mean, both had scenes in London. But yeah, the first one, over the top shoulder pads, tight fitting like body glove underneath. It was just there to make you look big and powerful. Yeah. And they got that across. It was just so shiny.
Yeah.
Everything was so shiny in it. And
it did do the favours of making him look like a symbol of authority, though.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why I didn't mind it, but it was very much almost what I'd call a ceremonial uniform. Yes. Whereas in the second one, that was like the day-to-day. And that's what really got me, was in the second one, it didn't have the big shoulder pads which the comics had in the 80s, but it was a lot more
practical.
And a lot more what you'd see today.
And also, I've got to say, if I bumped into both of them, I would be more scared of Dredd than Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd look at him like, fucking hell, he looks like he can fuck me up. Another way, the way they held their weapons,
very different.
Very different. So with Karl Urban, he held his weapon with both hands.
It was more tactical, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he just made short little bursts of shooting to conserve his ammo.
Well, the situation was very different as well, but it was very precise.
But when he held it, he was low to the ground, and he was looking down the sight straight at who he was shooting at.
Yeah.
Except for when he...
the
start. When he took out that guy. With that shot.
I'm sure that was a bit of a callback to the first film then.
Either that or it was a callback to Dirty Harry.
Yeah, it was very much one or the other, but it was so stylized, that whole camera shot. Yeah. And whereas in the first film, it's very blasé with it.
Yeah.
And it's
just one arm. Pew, pew,
I'm going to fire 1 million bullets without reloading.
Yeah.
And it was...
double whammy.
I mean, we can't talk about the costume without talking about the helmets.
Yes.
And the fact that...
Or the absent helmet.
The absent helmet in the first one, and the fact that the helmet never comes off.
It was a cool looking helmet, and you know what I mean? And we touched on this in the first podcast, that Stallone is so recognisable by just his chin that he didn't need to take it off. You'd still know that was Sylvester Stallone.
I mean, what got me, I was thinking about it earlier, was you never, apart from...
And the fact that he talks like Jim Ross as well.
Apart from Anderson, in the second film, none of the judges removed the helmets.
None of them.
And so it's not just...
And Anderson did, because she's known for not wearing a helmet.
Yeah, and you make a joke at that.
Yeah.
Which was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so good throughout the whole thing of it's not just Dredd that doesn't remove it. I mean, I would have loved to have seen if he'd have got his helmet knocked off in the second one and you wouldn't have seen his face, like you'd just seen him putting it back on.
Yeah.
I would have loved that, or just clever camera shots so you'd have just seen the back of his head and then put it back on.
Well, we did get that at the beginning when he was getting ready to go out.
And I just thought that would have just added to it, because it almost would have teased the first film with that. But it really did help set that film apart, very much so.
The helmet in the second one was more true to the comic as well. How it had the cross in the middle, and you didn't have that in the first one. You just had I suppose really the first one was more practical for the actor, because those crosses can't be great for your line of sight.
No, I mean the gunman cross is probably just below your eye.
Yeah.
They're cutting off that crossover, and it looks like it cuts off quite a bit of your peripheral as well.
Yeah.
I mean, any helmet does cut off your peripheral, but both of them even then. But I didn't mind the design of either helmet particularly. I preferred the second one, but the helmet wasn't the issue particularly in either of them. It was always the
fact that one of them took it off and the other one didn't.
Yeah. It was very much the actions with the costume then. And I mean, it's like in the second film, even though when he gets shot through the body, you can probably go, yeah, that's not... Like, yeah, he's hurt, but it has just passed through armour and a wall. So you accept that he's not as injured as he would have been if he'd have been shot in the first film.
When he's not wearing any body
armour. When he's not wearing anything.
Apart from his codpiece.
And his shoulders.
And his shoulder pads. Well, he doesn't wear the helmet, so let's even forget about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was that.
You know, it was the difference. I would say the costume was the difference between, like, the Adam West Batman...
Yes.
And the Dark Knight.
Yes.
That was how I would compare it if I was doing
Not
Batman's.
the bat nipples, the Adam West one.
Because it was really... The Adam West basically had an armoured belt.
They were about as camp as each other as well.
Yeah. Well, I would say, like, that's something to touch on, is how campy the first film was. It was so over the top and very campy sci-fi. Yeah. Whereas the second one was very near-future sci-fi. This could happen.
I would love if they made a Dredd video game. Like, the actual film Dredd, a video game based on that. That would be fucking awesome.
I mean, there's been 2 Dredd video games. There was the one that came out alongside the 90s film.
Yeah, which we played in a year.
We had to go over it, and that was hard as balls, but all old games seem hard, because that's just what they are.
Yeah.
But there is a one that came out in 2003, which it's short, you can still get it on GOG, and it's got Judge Dredd in it. And it's not a bad video game, it doesn't massively hold up, but 3D video games don't.
Yeah. I just think Judge Dredd game as a first-person shooter would be awesome.
I just think the IP has so much going for it. The video games, TV show, like more media.
The thing is, Rebellion is a video game company as well, so I'm surprised they haven't tried to get one.
I think they probably just haven't struck on the right idea for a game. Because, I mean, Judge Dredd isn't all about just shooting everyone.
Yeah.
So you couldn't do an out-and-out shooter, so you'd have to have a bit of maybe detective mystery in there as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do in a Dredd video game to make it right for the fans not to hate it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is you've got so much backstory.
If you get it wrong, it's just going to get shat all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
looking at both the films again, it's interesting how many nods to both the source material and other things they both have. I mean, the first one of the biggest things is you've got an ABC warrior.
Yes, yeah, you do.
Whereas in the second one, there's not really any callbacks to other 2000 AD stuff. There's callbacks to Dredd-specific stuff from the comics, but not 2000 AD. Whereas in the first one, like I say, ABC warrior, and
the second one didn't chuck so much shit at you, you know what I mean? It was very condensed.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff it had was in passing. It was
graffiti and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, we touched on it in both, like the little callbacks and nods it had.
Drock and stuff like that.
I felt that the second one handled it a lot more subtly. And I mean, the Fergie memorials mentioned in the second one.
Yeah.
And that's in the comics. And that's brilliant, but I also feels like that's a nod to the first film.
I'm just glad it means he's dead!
Because you love Rob Schneider.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, the comic relief wasn't massively there in the second film, but it was in a different way with the one-liners. That still made you laugh without making the film stupid.
Yes, yeah.
And again, that just comes down to the way it was written.
Well, they were just like witty and cutting, weren't they, more than anything?
I'd say overall, the second one was a very more concise film by lots of people who loved it. And the first one, you can tell that the script was rewritten by several different people multiple times. You can tell that the director didn't get all of his own way. Stallone was an issue in the whole process.
Yeah.
And it really is the tale of a film made well that's just inspired by the source material, and a film that was made in spite almost of the source material.
Yeah.
And I know you made the point that even in the DVD extras, he holds up the DC version of Dredd.
Yes.
And I think that might have something to do with it. That Americanized version of Dredd really made that first film suffer, because I don't think they quite picked up on the same nuances.
Well, they can't really. It's 2000 AD's version of Judge Dredd was speaking about the problems in the UK through that scope.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas in America, you're not going to pick up on that. You know?
I mean,
you've got such a wild political system as it is in America.
I mean, you look at a lot of the American heroes, there are none particularly like Dredd.
No.
You have ones that start to approach it a bit with like the anti-heroes, like the Punisher.
Yeah.
But
he's not he's not a symbol of authority.
It's not that same way, and history does shape, like the current events shape whatever the comic is that's been written at the time.
Yeah.
And you really get that with Dredd, and that's what really misses from the first film.
IDW seem to have gotten it okay in their version, but as far as I'm aware, the DC one never really hit the mark too much.
I think it was a lot of...
Except for those times where John Wagner wrote for them.
I mean, again, that's the big thing of what writers have you got behind it.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of American comics are written by British writers.
I mean, 2000 AD, there was a big exodus from there to America, and America got stuff like The Killing Joke and Watchmen as a result of that exodus. So it's not surprising that there's America then maybe craved like that Judge Dredd-esque character.
Yeah.
So when it was taken there, much like when The Office was taken across, when British comedy's taken to America, it's adapted for a different audience because they don't laugh at the same things, and you lose that essence of what it is.
Because they have shit sense of humour over there. I'm just kidding.
I'm not. Fuck you guys. No, the problem is that it's a different kind of humour. Dredd almost has that self-deprecating humour in it.
Which is very British.
And that is a very British. It's got a lot of sarcastic humour. Again, very British.
Yeah.
Lots of put-downs. And there's so much British humour in there that I think the second film gets that. And
well, in many ways, Dredd was a completely British production.
Well, it sounds daft, but like Carl Urban coming in, he's from New Zealand. That has a very similar humour to Britain.
Yeah, they're known for being quite self-deprecating.
Yeah.
Just have to look at Flight of the Conchords to see that.
Exactly. And you look at a lot of the stuff behind the scenes were British. I mean, it helps that the writer was British, so it still had that.
Was the director?
I think he was.
I think he was, yeah.
Yeah, Pete Travis.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was British, yeah.
And it was very much, they all got it. And that's what I'm trying to say is, everyone involved in that film got where Dredd was going and what it was about and how to capture that essence. And the first one was a Stallone action film.
Yeah, Stallone vehicle.
Yeah.
Same as any Stallone film. I think that summarised it up pretty well, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, they are like chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
I liked the first one, but for different reasons than it being a Dredd film.
The first one was fine. You know,
what's daft is the first film was what introduced me to Dredd.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
From there, after you start reading the Dredd comics and taking like the media of Dredd, that you go back to it and you go, how did I like this?
Yeah.
It's not the Dredd I know and love.
For the most part, it's inoffensive. It's just a fine film, you know. It's
there's nothing bad about, like, there is a lot bad about it, but there's nothing too egregious.
Nothing massively off-putting about it. It's fine. It's alright.
Like we said, it's meh.
Yeah, that's it.
It's very middle of the road, and unfortunately, as a comic book movie, that's one of the greatest sins you can have.
Yeah.
Because you either go right
die
down
hero. You live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
And it really did suffer from going really down the middle. And you either love or hate Dredd. And most fans love it because it was so good and so consistent with how Dredd is. I mean, it really is that it's hard to compare them because I know we both love the second one so much that we compare the first one to it, it's never going to stand up. But, oh well. What can you do?
That would never stand up in a court of law.
On that note, you can find me at Valkyrie Rising on Twitter. Where can they find you?
You can find me at Jay Horner on the Twitter. You can find me at Jay Horner Illustration on both Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, you can find All Star Supercast on Facebook
and Twitter. At All Supercast on Twitter.
It's correctly spelled. I have a habit of misspelling Supercast.
Yeah. I did the Twitter though, so it's alright.
You find the audio versions of these podcasts on SoundCloud, and the video versions go up later in that day on YouTube.
We've also got trivia videos coming out.
So it's goodbye from you.
Yep. Go away.
And goodbye from me.
Love you. Go away.